So let's see. Okay, it streams. It works. Okay, let's keep this in the background. Let me put this in the foreground and let me put this here. So, hello everyone. My name is Protesilaos. I'm not sure where I should be looking now because the setup I have here is a bit strange. So I will just look, yeah, there, I guess. And yeah, we will see. So my name is Protesilaos, also known as Prot. I want to do this live stream today, and the idea is to ask me anything. So if there is any question in the chat, I am happy to answer it to the extent I can, and then see how that goes. If there are no questions, no problem, because I will then do some package maintenance of one of my Emacs packages. So I have a few ideas of what I could work on, but then we will see. We will see. So hello everybody. So Pavlos is there, and Mihai. So hello to both of you. So this is the idea. I started a minute earlier because I wasn't sure about the stream. Here it seems to be okay. The audio seems to be all right. Like I'm checking this so that it is not hitting the red. So that is fine. And this seems to be doing right. By the way, here I think there is a setting. Hello, Zoltan. Hello, 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 everybody. I think there is a setting somewhere, folks. Let me see if I can find it. Stream settings. Where is it? No, yeah, I have no idea. Maybe here. Reactions. Timestamps. Maybe you can. No, what I want basically is for this to work instantaneously, for this to be no delay, basically. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. So maybe there is some delay. What does it say here? The stream's current bitrate is lower than the recommended. Uh, okay, I don't know how to do that, folks. So yeah, we will work with what we have. So let's put this down so you can see the lovely background as well. So yeah, there is that. So the idea, as I said, is to have some questions, and I'm happy to answer them if I can. And if there are no questions, I will do some coding, so that's good. We will win anyway. So there is a question here. So again, hello to everybody. There is a question here from Pavlos. Super random question. Do you use Magit on Emacs? If yes, how do you like it? If no, what do you use instead for Git stuff? The answer is that I do use Magit. So the author of the package, Jonas Bernoulli, wants us to call it Magit, which is a play on the word magic. But me personally, I prefer to call it Magit, which hints at Git. But anyway, so I do use Magit. I do use it practically every day for all the non-trivial Git operations. So if I need to do something with rebase, if I need to do some cherry picking, if I need to switch branches, if I need to do any of the advanced workflows of Git, you know, beside commit and push, I use Magit. If I only need to do, you know, like commit, push, and don't ask any questions, then I use the built-in VC. I also use the VC, and actually on this note, let me open Emacs. I also use VC in a scenario where I need to produce a changelog. So for example, here, let me enlarge the font. Which one should I use? I have one for live streams. So I don't know if this is good enough. No, I don't like this. So I will do the presentation. So I think this is good enough. So I use VC as well in a scenario where I need to write the changelog. So I always write the changelog on the day where I make the release. And the idea is, so I will show you how I am doing it. So the idea is that I will do, for example, this and on the given date. And in the other window here, I will have this. This is the command, let's see it, mx vc root log, I think. And this is the command. And what I have here is basically the commit log. And what I like with this is that I can hit a key and basically expand it. This is with some configuration. I am happy to tell you the technicalities. But the point is that I can go through these And as I see them, because of course all my commits, have this kind of thing where I explain if there is somebody else who contributed, I can take this and I can mention it in my changelog, and I can also do this very quickly if I need to see the diff. So this is the idea. And basically, I use both in that regard. Uh, let's say you're on it. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. So let me see what I can do. So yeah, folks, I will have to use a smaller font though, because if I have this large font, then it will be really tough. So maybe this will be okay. I'm sorry if it is too small, but let's see. Oh no, you can still not see me because I am in the way. Sorry. I am sorry. Terribly sorry. Let's make myself small. And yeah, okay. I didn't realize that it would overlay my face on top of this. So probably now you see it. Okay, so now you see it. Let me say this again very quickly. So I will do mx and then vc print root log like this. And it will put the commit log here. And then I can toggle them on and off like this. And I can see what is here. And if there is any commit that mentions, another person, I will have it in the commit message, and then I will reference that person in the release notes. So this is how it's always going. And from here, of course, you can produce the diff, and yeah, you take it from there. So this is the idea, and let's undo this very quickly. So yeah, let's see. So let's see what we have. We are here. Looks and sounds great, so very well. So hello to everybody. Hello, hello. What would you recommend for working with the Office suite in Emacs? I guess you are referring to LibreOffice and Friends. So it will depend on your requirements. Like org, for example, has this option to export to ODT files. And I think that works okay. But then you lose some of the features of those programs, like the tracked changes, when somebody makes a changes, you see what they changed and who the author was. So you lose that kind of feature. So if you need two-way communication, I think Emacs will not be the right tool. It would basically get in the way. But if you only want to send them something and for them to read it, then it should be totally okay. But in that scenario, you probably don't want ODT anyway. You could just produce a PDF and have that. But for other things like the presentations you do with LibreOffice or the how is it they are called, the spreadsheets, for those I think yeah, you will just have to use those tools if what you need is to collaborate with other people. But if you want to do some spreadsheet, basic spreadsheet in Emacs, you can use org mode, the tables. They have functionality that you can run a function on the tables, and so that works okay. And if you want to do presentations in Emacs, well, of course, there are many ways to do that. So it's really good in that regard. But as always, it will depend on your use case. Me personally, I use Emacs for everything, but it's also because of what I do. Like if I was collaborating with people that would expect me to be using LibreOffice or whatever equivalent, I wouldn't try to force myself to use Emacs. I would be like, fine, I have to be pragmatic. I have to get things done. I will use LibreOffice or whatever. So this is the idea. Let's see what we have. So yeah, Minas here told me earlier that they couldn't see the window, so hopefully this has been fixed now. So Pablo, yes, so Magit or Magit for the more intense, the more involved Git stuff, and then VC for the basic stuff. That granted, VC can also do more advanced stuff. I just think that the interface of Magit is more intuitive for those. But of course, it depends. Like if it's something that is advanced and you are doing it frequently, you already know the key bindings and the workflow with VC. So then you can do it that way. But if it's something like, like a Git cherry, for example, which I do once in a blue moon. If there is that, I don't need to memorize whatever I need to do that outside of my Git. I will just use my Git and be done with it. Let's see here. Raul says, I was trying Modus themes, but had to make my own customizations for Emacs. Any reason this is not supported? Would you like a patch with its faces? So yes, for sure. If you have a patch, yes, please send it. The reason it is not supported is because I am not a user of Emacs, and it defines a lot of faces. And because I am not a user, it's hard for me to know exactly where those faces should go. Like, what should I be expecting? How will it work? How does it look? So, if you want to send a patch, that's good. But even if you don't have a patch, you can start a discussion. And if you have screenshots and basically help me understand what we are seeing, that will also work. So, if you have code, good. If you have just some time to work with me, that's also good. And then we can add the support for this popular package for sure. Carlos is asking, are you using a certain GNU/Linux distribution at the moment, or are you distro hopping? Me, I don't distro hop. Like, I switched to Linux in 2016. I experimented a little bit in the beginning. I started with Linux Mint, which to this day I consider a fantastic distribution. But then I switched to Arch, and I was using Arch Linux until my laptop broke. And no, wrong. I was using Arch Linux for about 2 years. Then I switched to Debian, and I was using that until my laptop stopped working. And then on this computer, which I got in 2020, I believe, I was using Arch until the beginning of this year. But at the beginning of this year, I switched to Debian. This is Debian stable right now. And the reason I did that is because I am on a metered internet connection. And I don't want to have Arch installing gigabytes every time I do an update. And I was like, okay, let's stick with Debian, just security updates and basically small updates, and we are good. And I really like Debian. It's fantastic, super stable. It just works. Me, I don't really care about the latest and greatest, like what you would have on Arch. I will always compile Emacs from source, and other than that, I don't care. Like Firefox is running whatever stable version it is running. Chromium is the same, and basically, yeah, that's it. So yeah, this is it. So hello Yogi, hello Mehdi, hello everybody. Let's see where we are. I am kind of new to Emacs. I have tried to use it to develop .NET and Laravel applications, but the Lisp mode compilation is slower than VS Code and Vim. I don't know why, and I'm afraid I don't know either. Uh, yeah, you will have to find. You will have to basically check what is going on. If you can see, maybe it's the specific configuration you have, or maybe you need some package. Yeah, I really don't know what would that involve. Mehdi is asking, do you use Emacs normal key bindings or evil bindings? I do use the Emacs key bindings. I have been using them since the beginning. I switched to Emacs in the summer of 2019, and I used evil for a while here and there, but I think the Emacs key bindings are really good. They just work, and I like the fact that they have mnemonic value. Like once you learn the patterns, it's easy to extend them. And for me, that works really nicely because I can remember a lot of key bindings. And I remember them because exactly they are kind of predictable. Of course, you can do that with Vim keys, but many of the Vim keys for me don't really make sense. Like, I don't even remember right now what it is, but for example, if you are on a parenthesis and you want to jump to the other matching parenthesis, you use, I think, the percent. And I'm like, percent? How? Why? So anyway, there are many little things like that. But the point is that whatever you are using, it's fine because Emacs is not about the key bindings. Emacs is about the fact that you can configure it, you can customize it to do exactly what you want. And you can have these, especially once you learn some Emacs Lisp, you can have these small automations, these small optimizations that basically streamline something that you do frequently, and you are like, wow, this is fantastic. I just have something that is specific to me, but that's fine. That's the whole point of Emacs. It's allowing me to be opinionated and to be unapologetic about the fact that I am opinionated. This granted, though, I am also using a keyboard that has programmable keys. So one downside of the Emacs keys, especially if don't have good technique when you are typing, is that you hold down a lot of modifier keys. And especially if you are doing this with your pinky, with your weaker fingers, this is a major problem. Like there is this idea, bind the caps lock to control. And for me, that's a disaster because you are holding down control all the time with your pinky. Really bad, really bad. So whatever you do, it's a good idea to also consider your keyboard setup and your desk setup so that you don't tire yourself out. I talked about this in previous videos. Maybe you are not aware of this, but around this time last year, I was suffering a lot from repetitive strain injury. And actually, I still have a bit of pain, so it's not completely healed, but it's mostly healed. And for me, switching to a custom keyboard and making sure that I have all the customizations in the firmware was a game changer. So ever since I did that, Emacs keys are, yeah, fantastic. Okay, so let's see. Where are we? The thing is that this is scrolling, so I probably missed it. Let's see here. Do you use Emacs to manage your progress projects? I'm not sure what is a progress project. I will assume you mean something like, to do, getting things done, that kind of thing. And the answer is yes, I use Emacs exclusively. By the way, sorry, since I am not doing anything in Emacs here, let me put this down and let me make my face here larger so that you can see me. And if I need to bring up Emacs, I can make this smaller again and do that. So this way you can see me. So I do use Emacs for all my getting things done kind of workflow, for all my to-dos. So I am using the org agenda and I am using org capture as well. And I am using those in tandem with my email setup, which is in Emacs. So here is the idea. Because I do coaching on Emacs, Linux, and life issues in general. So somebody will send me an email and will be like, hey, Prot, how about we do a coaching session, tomorrow, let's say. And I'm like, fantastic. So I have an org capture template. So I invoke org capture. It creates a template with the data that I want to have, the name of the person and the description. And it automatically inserts a link to the email. So when the day comes where I am supposed to meet this person, I can go check that task, which appears on my org agenda because of the date. I go check that task and I see the link. So I'm like, okay, what did we discuss with this person? Let me refresh my memory. I follow the link and then I can read the conversation right there. And that is, the actual email. So I can, reply and work with the email the way I would work ordinarily. So for me, this is a superpower basically. It's a fantastic setup. I really like it. I have been using this setup for many years now, and I have been using email exclusively in Emacs. Well, since I set it up, I don't remember when was that now, maybe 4 years, yeah, something like that. And yeah, fantastic. It really works. I really like it. But in terms of progress, so like you have a project and you're like, I have 10 tasks to do and I did two of them or whatever. Generally, I don't do that. Generally, I don't keep track of the minutia. I don't like to break down, large projects into all the possible subtasks that they have and the subtasks of the subtasks and so on. I generally know what I want to do. Like, giving you like a generic example. Let's say go buy groceries. Okay, I don't need to actually write a shopping list. I know that I will need to buy, what I always buy, and basically I go and I do that. I don't have a list and I check off the list. And the same for my projects. Like, let's say I want to release a new version of one of my Emacs packages. I don't need to write, the subtasks like produce a changelog, check that everything the byte compiles properly, make sure to tag the new release, etc. I don't really do that, so I'm more relaxed in that regard. And about progress more generally, I don't like to log too much data about my life because I don't go back to review it. Like, like clocking, for example. I don't really clock how much time I spend on stuff because if it's 30 minutes, it's 30 minutes. If it's 1 hour, it's 1 hour, and I don't really care. So that's how it goes. If I ever need to do something, of course, which is really time sensitive, I am totally okay to clock my time. But generally speaking, let's see here. Pretty Function says, does anyone know if Emacs binaries of newer versions like 29.4 are good enough in terms of performance? Or is it still recommended to build and compile from source to get a huge improvement? Thanks. I think what you are referring to is the native compilation. So I think that is enabled by default in many distributions that provide Emacs 29, but you will have to check. But in principle, that should be the default. I don't know what's the state of affairs with newer versions of Emacs. Maybe they are enabling native compilation by default, so the distro won't have to do that. But yeah, let's see. Divan Santana says, what's your views on the Christian Bible? Have you read it? Do you think it's written by the Holy Spirit, God, as itself claims? Starting with the second question, I think not. I think everything has been written by humans. Humans which can nevertheless be profound thinkers and which can, by virtue of their spirituality, touch what we would consider the divine. But I don't think there is such a thing as revelation. Like basically, you have a direct connection with God, and God says something and you transcribe it. I don't believe in that. No. I have read the Bible. I'm not a Bible expert by any means, and there are parts in it which are very interesting and which can guide your life and guide it well, but it always depends on how you read it. It always depends on interpretation. So I think studying the Bible, or for that matter, studying any religious text, on your own, is not the intended way to study it, I think. I think the intended way to study it is in the context of a community, in this case, of course, a community of Christians, but generally speaking, in the context of a community where others can help you develop a more rounded understanding of what you are reading because of the interpretation that has to go into it. And if you are interpreting it in isolation, it's very easy to misinterpret it, I think. Whereas if you are interpreting it with others, in the context of others, in the community, it is more likely that your opinions will not be extreme. Of course, there can be extreme opinions, and in history there have been extreme interpretations which have justified political ends. Those I think we can criticize without criticizing the text itself, because it's the interpretation that is the problem and not necessarily the text. So there is that. Finally, I would say, as with anything, you also have to apply common sense, and you have to conduct yourself in accordance with the principle of practicality. Like, the idea of loving others, for example. Of course, you have to love others to the extent that you can. You cannot sacrifice yourself in the service of others, because then you are not really loving yourself. And you have to love everybody, not just others. You also have to love yourself to be in a position to be of service to others as well. So there is that. Mihai says, have you checked out the Android version of Emacs 30? It also makes use of Termux for CLI-shell slash shell stuff, but you need the .apk signed specifically for the Emacs Android build. So the answer is that I have not tried it. On the one hand, I am nerdy enough to want to try it. On the other hand, I know that I tend to do deep dives into what I am doing, and basically I go down the rabbit hole. And this is a good thing, of course, because then you can understand what you are doing and be productive. But if you go down too many rabbit holes, well, there is not enough time. So that is a really bad thing then. So you get distracted basically. And for me, the idea is that even though I would love to go check it out, I don't do it because then it's a rabbit hole and I won't really gain anything out of doing that. I only run Emacs on the computer, so I don't try to do anything on the mobile phone. My phone, I use it just for phone calls, and SMS, as well as for the camera. That's all I do with it. I don't use it for anything related to productivity, and I also don't use it to browse the web either. Of course, if I really need to browse the web, I can do it, but the idea is not to do it. And basically, when I am away from the computer, not to get absorbed into all the tech slash computer activities. So there is that. Mehdi asks, what is your opinion on tree sitter in Emacs? I have not done any real work with it, so I withhold the judgment. It seems to be very promising, like, everybody talks about it. Like there are all these major modes and packages that are building on top of tree sitter. I think the idea makes total sense. Like you have a more accurate understanding of the language you are dealing with. So I think that's good. But we need to see. Like I haven't yet seen a killer feature where you are like, okay, tree sitter is the real deal, and basically we are at the point of no return. There is no going back to the old way of writing functions with heuristics and regular expressions. But I haven't seen that personally. Maybe it already exists, but I haven't seen it. So I wait and I will find out eventually. Let's see. Petros K says, have you got any suggestions for eye-opening books concerning with social issues and politics? It can be literature or anything really. Well, there are too many, and if I start, I will probably forget, many of them. But one book that I think is really powerful is Leviathan by Thomas Hobbes. And Hobbes, we have to understand, there are people who are like, oh, Hobbes is an authoritarian, terrible, terrible. We don't want that. We want freedom, democracy, blah, blah, blah. And I think this is one way to misunderstand Hobbes and more generally to misunderstand people of earlier eras. Because we many times do this mistake of applying our current standards, the current progress we have made, applying those to earlier eras. And we are like, hey, you don't live up to our standards, so you are terrible, you are useless. And I think that's not the right way to go about it. I think we need to be more eclectic. We need to study the source material and try to understand it in the context of its era. And so Hobbes was writing the Leviathan at a time of great unrest. There was civil war, there was disease, there was destruction everywhere. And what he was seeing is brother go against brother, sibling go against sibling. And he was like, what is this? This is a complete disaster. What we need is basically some authority to keep us in check so that we are not the war of all against all, as is his famous phrase. So I think that is a great book, but there are many, right? So there are too many now. And another one which, because you mentioned literature, another one which is more contemporary is The Animal Farm. I forget the name of the author now, a well-known author, but it slips my mind right now. But Animal Farm, it's a 20th century book, and ostensibly it is about animals at the farm, but in reality it is a commentary on, current affairs, current and throughout history, basically human affairs. But there are many others. I'm sure that I will think of more in the process. Is this XFCE? Looks awesome. It is XFCE indeed, and it is fantastic. I really like it. I think XFCE strikes I think, the right balance of being useful, and you can basically work with it right away, and being customizable. I have tried to use GNOME, and I like the GNOME workflow, the distraction-free kind of workflow. But then I am like, hey, I would like to move the clock to the side, or something simple like that. And you need an extension to do that, which is written in JavaScript or whatever. And I'm like, no, I don't want to use an extension for that. This should be a feature, and I'm sorry, I will go elsewhere. So XFC, which has like, I don't know how many people, but far fewer than GNOME. XFC is understaffed and underfunded compared to GNOME, which is basically a powerhouse for the free software world. And XFC provides this stable, useful, and customizable experience. Fantastic. I have the best experience. XFC is great. So let's see. Arthur here is saying, does Atlas still sing when you play the flute? The answer is yes, though I don't actually play the flute. I only do it for Atlas, basically. So I am terrible when it comes to music and art in general. But yeah, if the dog is having a good time, I'm happy to do it. So there is that. But dogs are absolutely amazing. They can do so many things, and by observing dogs you can understand a lot about human nature as well. But I won't elaborate on that now. One thing to say about the dogs is there are people who call dogs no who say that they are, I am, Atlas's dad or whatever, or mom or whatever. So I am the parent of the dog. And me personally, I don't see it this way. For me, a dog is not a child. For me, a dog is another animal, and it's basically a domesticated wolf. And I treat this animal with respect. And I learn from it, and it learns from me. And I appreciate what it is as a dog, as a domesticated wolf and a domesticated apex predator, basically. And I think that's a wonderful, wonderful relationship. Let's see. Why can't Vertigo do fuzzy search meta X? I'm not sure I follow you. So Vertigo, I think I understand. So Vertigo can do it, but it's not actually Vertigo that does it. So let's bring Emacs up. So let me make myself smaller here, and let's bring this up. So let's see here in Emacs. Let's go to my Emacs configuration, and let's go to the completion styles. And here we are. So the completion styles is how you configure Emacs to do pattern matching in the mini buffer. And there are many styles built in to Emacs. There is Flex, which is the fuzzy search that you are describing. But there is another package by Omar Antolin Camarena called Orderless. And basically, you can configure Emacs. So maybe I can bring this a bit here. Let's see. And basically, you can configure Emacs to have a set of styles that you want. In my case here, I set orderless last. Oh, sorry, 1 second, because I need to make it a little bit larger. I set orderless last, and this means that Emacs will first try this. If that fails, it will go to the second and third and so on, and it will reach orderless. But in practice, I reach orderless very quickly because as soon as you input a space, The other Emacs completion styles don't calculate the space. So you use a space and you type anything, and orderless will match it. And the idea with orderless is that you can have those patterns match out of order. So, for example, here in the headings, there is, for example, details of my Emacs build. So, for example, I can type build and then details, you see, and I am matching it like this. And for me, orderless is basically fantastic. Like, why wouldn't you have orderless? It's one of the best things you can have. And even if you don't change anything else, just adding orderless to your configuration will upgrade your setup. More so if you add Vertigo and if you add Consult and all the other packages developed by Daniel Mendler, also known as MinAdd on GitHub. So if you add those, you have a fantastic setup. They are superb, superb. So when you hear Daniel Mendler, it's basically a seal of quality. You don't need to check the code. You know it's good. So there is that. What do we have here? MTJ, you should try Iglot. It's minimal and very fast. I think this is in reference to the Laravel programming. Let's see. Yeah, probably. Yeah, I cannot find it. Yeah, but I think it's in reference to that. So let's see. So those are some smileys here. That's cute. Paul Harper, I just want to thank you for your prots dots for Debian. Wow, that's a throwback. I am still basically using your config of BSPWM with some modifications. I am on Ubuntu because it is easier to dual boot with Windows 11. Protodots for Debian, for those who don't know, is the setup I was using around 2018, 2019 on Debian. And it was basically how to set up Debian with BSPWM. And to your point, Paul, I also have that setup. I am not using it right now because of my RSI. I try not to use the keyboard as much. But once this is recovered, I am going back to my tiling window managers and all the fancy stuff. But basically, my setup is a continuation of that. I haven't really refashioned it. So it's the same thing, but with some refinements. And I think it's fantastic. It's really good. And generally speaking, tiling window managers on Emacs are or on Linux rather, are rock solid. At least those that are for X. I don't know what is happening with Wayland. I have tried to use Wayland, and yeah, I keep encountering issues, and I'm like, yeah, maybe in 5 years we will see. When XFC is fully Wayland compatible, I will also be on Wayland. Basically, something like that. And yes, to your point, I imagine it will also work with Ubuntu. 1 second, because it scrolled too far, and I need to see where we are. So we were on Paul Harper here. You told me how to pronounce your nickname, and I think it's Alternate Eved. I think, or it was it Et Ved. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure. No, Alternate Ved. Yeah, something like that. Come on. Um, do you feel perfectly satisfied with Emacs, or do you sometimes consider alternatives like NeoVim, which could be configured with Fennel, or Helix, which might get Scheme plugin support? Uh, Personally, I am perfectly happy with Emacs. I am not saying this as a fanboy, right? I don't mean to say, hey, Emacs is the best thing ever, and you shouldn't be using anything else. I don't mean to sound that. I am a pragmatist, and if something works for me, I will use it. So I'm not really team Emacs for the sake of team Emacs, if that makes sense. Um, if you need to use NeoVim, if you need to use Helix, if you need to use VS Code or whatever, well, do it, no problem. But for me, at least, Emacs is the perfect tool for my use case. Like, I cannot find anything that hinders me. It's not perfect in terms of its quirks and some of its design constraints. We all know those, right? But it's too good for me to let go. Let's put it that way. Here, do you feel like having a split keyboard is worth it compared to traditional keys? I also mentioned my RSI. This is my keyboard. This is the Iris keyboard by Kibio Revision 8. And this is a keyboard that I got as a gift from a person named Andreas, to whom I am most thankful. Without exaggeration, it has changed my life. I would still be injured. So I think it is worth it. I think basically your health is worth it. I used to think that why would you want to spend, all that money on a keyboard when there are other things in life you would want to spend the money on? Why make that kind of investment? And I used to think, oh, it's very expensive. But then I was like, what is more expensive? Me not be able to work on the computer at all, or me doing a one-time investment in a good keyboard and basically being able to work on the computer normally. And I think once you put it in those terms, it's clear that the keyboard is worth it. However, it doesn't have to be a split keyboard. You can still use a traditional keyboard, but make sure that it is configurable. And I encourage you to check one-shot modifiers. I do use one-shot modifiers. The idea is, normally you will press and hold Control and you hit X, let's say, right? And this counts as Control X. With one-shot modifiers, you tap Control, you release it, and within a certain configurable time frame, whatever key you type will count as a control key. So Control X, and this is Control X, okay? This is the idea. And you can also have, I have it, double tap of the modifier to do a control lock or a shift lock or an alt lock, etc. And the idea is that you double tap, it's locked in now, and so anything you press will be with the modifier as if you were holding it down. I think this is called sticky keys or something. Fantastic. And then you hit it again once and you release it. This is customizable and you can make it a triple tap or change how it works, whatever. But for me, it's like that, and it's a really reliable setup. It works. There is another setup called home row modifiers, and for me, this cannot work. It's impossible to write pros with home row mods. I get misfires all the time. I tried all the configurations. Nothing works. For me, it's not going to work. And there are, these other extensions on top. Accordion, I think it's called, for QMK. And basically, these won't work for me either because I checked. Let's see. Renault is saying, hello, Prot. What are the Emacs features or packages that support your eLisp coding? Do you use paredit, Lispy, or anything else? And the answer is I basically don't use anything. I only have the show parent mode, where it highlights the matching parentheses. And that's it. I don't use anything else. I tried them. I tried paredit, and I think it has a really good idea of a workflow. But for me, it doesn't work because sometimes I will open a parenthesis and let's say open parenthesis and I write when or if or whatever. And then I remember that I wanted to have a let before the when. So I leave it there and I go and I open a parenthesis for a let. And when you do that with paredit, it doesn't know what to do and it starts adding parentheses at the end. And I'm like, no, no, please, for the love of all that is holy, don't do that. We won't be friends. So yeah, I couldn't use it because of that. So it's a user error. It's not the fault of the package. But I know people who use them and basically, they basically do magic with the code. So that's fantastic. This granted, there are some key bindings in Emacs, and you can check them out. Control meta F, control meta B, control meta N, control meta P. You can also use control meta T to transpose symbolic expressions. And all these work on the syntax, on the S expression. And I use those, and they work really nice. And basically, that's it. I would say it's a simple setup, all things considered. But it works. I have, all this Emacs Lisp code that I write, and I am happy with it. I am not the fastest in terms of editing, but that is not the real bottleneck anywhere. Anyway, I think the real bottleneck is thinking of what you want to do. That's like what are the next steps, how we should design this, those sorts of things. So it's more in your head rather than at your fingertips. Let's see here. Rogue Portal says, if you could snap your fingers and change anything within unrelating to Emacs, what would it be? That's a really, really good question. I'm not sure actually. Because the reason I am not sure is because, for example, everybody talks about this multi-threading, or multi-threading, however you pronounce it. And yeah, I don't have the expertise to say if it's good or bad. Like people say it's a good idea, so I will parrot them. I will echo that feeling and say, well, if everybody says it, then it must be a good idea. But for it not to be around, it's probably not that straightforward of an idea. So I would be very careful with, you know, bringing into life what I wish. So instead of going in that direction, I would just want to snap my fingers and make everything as it is, like faster, whatever faster entails, right? But without breaking anything, let's just make it faster. I don't know, 60 frames per second, whatever, Make it faster, make it smooth, make it fun, that kind of thing. But if I had the technical acumen to work on the low C level, then probably I would have a better answer. Let's see, what do we have? Modus Vivendi is my theme in the terminal, and Kiss, and F Owl when I'm staying up an hour before sleep. So that's good to know. Both are themes that I have designed and which I maintain. And yeah, I use them, of course, and I like them as well. What I do with my themes is that I have them in rotation. So one day I will use Modus, the other day I will use the F themes, a third day I will use the standard themes. So I try to use a bit of everything and have my eyes on the details and see if anything is not the way I would like it to be, at which point I will make edits. Thank you for your fonts and themes. They are truly incredible. So you're welcome. Thank you very much. I use them, of course, all the times. For me, the fonts, Iosefka Comfy is the name of the font. For me, the fonts are really irreplaceable. I use them everywhere. You might notice that I use them in my desktop, everywhere, everywhere. And for me, this was always a pain point. Like the least bad font I had was Hack, the monospaced font, with my modifications. So I was using Hack with some alternative characters. So that was good, but there were some things that I didn't like about it. And also, I didn't have a good complement of it, of proportionately spaced font. So I was like, yeah, I don't like this. I'm always not at ease with it. Eventually, Iosefka came about, and you can configure it and you can compile your own fonts. And I have been doing that for several years now, and there is no going back for me. And if Iosefka ever develops a fully proportionately spaced font, of course I will be using that as well. But even though the design of Iosefka Comfy is mine, all credit goes to the upstream project, right? Because if it's not the upstream project providing that foundation that we can use, to build custom fonts, I wouldn't be doing anything. And that's why the backronym of Iosefka Comfy is the comfy part, could only modify a font. Yes. And it's a play on me not being actually a font developer, but a font, modifier, whatever, tinkerer. Let's see what we have. Things that you don't like about Emacs. So, as I said, I don't mean to sound like a fanboy, but for me, everything works, and I'm like really happy with it. But if I were to think in terms of what might be useful to other people, then I would say the one thing we that would be really helpful is some way to provide a better out of the box experience. Of course, this is Emacs, and there are, 1,000 users, therefore 1,000 opinions, and so it's not that easy to reach consensus. But I think having some kind of wizard.el would be the way to go. I could try to write that package, but I am already maintaining too many packages, and yeah, I don't know if I will have time for it. Also, I won't be using it, so yeah, I'm not really the target audience. And I think this also speaks at another problem we have generally in Emacs, which is like to be using Emacs long term, you reach a point where either you have a very specific workflow and basically that's it, or you have become kind of an expert and you are so deep into Emacs Lisp where now you don't really think in terms of how the average user would be thinking. And I think I still have an eye for the basics, but maybe my eye is not that good given that I am also heavily invested in Emacs List. My eyes are also not that good because I'm wearing glasses, so of course, you know how it is. Let's see. Wilf says, hi, Prot. Hello there. Very happy to be here. I hope this is only the first of many other Ask Me Anything sessions. I was curious, what is your opinion on geeks? Would you try it again? So, about the AMA, so the Ask Me Anything sessions, I am happy to do them. One problem, though, you may notice which that it is already getting dark here, and basically what I want to say is that this time of the year I won't be able to do those because the days are getting shorter until we reach the shortest day at the winter solstice on the 23rd of December. So expect me to do more of those if it's something that you like after the spring equinox. So we are talking about the 23rd of March when the days are longer, and so I can use my computer and not worry about the electricity. The reason I have to be mindful of the electricity is because I am solar powered and my battery capacity is low. So if I stay here for too long, I will deplete the batteries, and before nighttime, before I go to bed, I won't have any electricity. So that's why I have to be mindful. To your question, geeks. Oh, it's actually raining. Oh my goodness. It hasn't rained. It rained once in September, and before that, it was like April or whatever. So some raindrops, folks. This is fantastic. Geeks, excellent, really good. It solves or it addresses lots of highly complex technical problems, difficult problems, and it does it in a very good way. That granted, I don't have any of those problems. Like the idea of having a setup that you can declare and reproduce, like for me, like what's the point? I have one computer. Where am I going to reproduce that? I don't run a lab, where I need to set up a computer for 10 other people or whatever. I'm just an individual here. I have one computer, and basically that's it. If I need to recreate my setup by doing a full disk backup and by restoring that, I have all the dot files in place, in the dot config, the dot local, etc. I mean the dot files that I don't keep track of in Git, all the others. And basically the setup is exactly like this. I don't configure anything. So for me, it's not really something that I see myself using in the near future. Also, I mentioned earlier about my caps, my data caps. I think I mentioned it. I believe I did. And Geeks also downloads a lot of data, like Arch Linux. And whenever you do a package update or whatever, it was consuming a lot of data. And so I was like, yeah, this is another issue where I won't be committing to Geeks. And that's why I switched to Debian everywhere. So hi there, folks. Hello there to you as well. Let's see. Nix is functional as well. Nix, I haven't used it. People, say good things about it. It is like Geeks. Actually, Geeks is like Nix. Um, so yeah, if more power to you. I don't feel like I would experiment. I don't feel that I am gaining anything. It's at best a nice side project for me. But I have many other side projects if I want. And I would rather write an Emacs package or something rather than play around with those. So Arch has a special package called Emacs Native Comp. Sure, and if you are using Arch Linux, consider writing your own pkg build file. Pkg build is how all the AUR packages are declared, and it's not too difficult to write. Basically, take the emacs.git or emacs-git, whatever, on the AUR, take the pkg build from there, and modify it to do exactly how you want to build your Emacs. And then you just do make package dash si and maybe the capital C if you need to clean build it, and you got your package. So even if there is no package which does exactly how you want to build Emacs, it's really easy to do that. Are you afraid of a possible World War III? Uh, there is the chance of that happening. Of course, I am concerned. I wouldn't say it's likely. I think it's still unlikely, but you never know. And the people who are leading countries on either side of this possible conflict have to be mindful of the power they are wielding. When we have nuclear weapons, nuclear arsenals all around, this is really, really scary. And people have to calm down and they have to be very, very careful with their rhetoric, with their actions, and with their provocations. And I think we are at a point where there is bellicose rhetoric, teetering on the edge of outright hatred and just mindless hatred. And there is also provocations. There are provocations going on, and I don't like it. And I think it's not the right way to continue. I think what we have a major casualty in our era, like at least in the countries I know more about, in the Western so-called countries, what we have lost is subtlety, is nuance. Like you have one extremist saying the most extreme thing, and then instead of having a moderate telling this person, "Hey, what are you talking about? Are you out of your mind? Are you totally unhinged?" Instead of having that, we have the opposite extremist saying the other most extreme thing. And I think this is a toxic cocktail because this creates a climate of fear, a climate of intolerance, and the reasonable people cannot be heard. And all you hear about is those extreme voices, this highly vociferous and highly misanthropic people, and that's not good at all. So, yeah, I'm not happy. I would say we are still not likely facing World War III, but it's not unlikely either, and that's terrible in and of itself. Graham asks, does Jesus use Emacs? I'm thinking yes. Uh, and yeah, there are maybe, I don't know. But the thing is that if you expect somebody to do something out of nothing, then they will probably be doing it with Emacs because, yeah, if you can think about it, you can do it basically. Let's see. Prot, are you aware of the Royal Air Force Akrotiri? If so, what do you think of its presence in Cyprus and NATO, American and English presence, in Cyprus in general? So, for those who don't know, the Republic of Cyprus is an independent country, a member of the United Nations. Uh, It gained its independence in 1960, and it was a former colony of the British Empire. As a legacy of the British colonialism, there are two military bases in Cyprus. One is in Akrotiri, the other one is in the Kelia. And these are sovereign military bases. So technically, this is not Cyprus. This is not the Republic of Cyprus. This is the United Kingdom, right? So what I think about them, I am not a fan. I cannot be a fan of any form of colonialism, and I cannot be a fan of any form of post-colonial military presence in any of the former colonies, whether this is Cyprus or this is any other country, right? So it's not Cyprus specific. Whether it serves the interests of NATO or whatever, of course it does, and that's why it's here. But whether that is a good thing or not, I mean, earlier we were talking about World War III. I don't think NATO is a force for good. And I think NATO started out as a good idea, like, a defensive alliance, but it hasn't been a defensive alliance for a very long time now. I don't think it was a defensive alliance when it was doing these campaigns away from home. When you are bombing other countries in what is actually an offensive war, I don't think that counts as a defensive alliance anymore. So I am not a fan of NATO. This does not mean that I justify the other forces, right? I am not a fan of those either. I am not a fan of imperialism in general. I believe in the self-determination of peoples. I believe in the independence of countries. I believe in countries that do not interfere everywhere. Like why do the Brits or the French or the Americans or whomever need to have a presence in Africa, in the Middle East, in Asia, in Latin America, or whatever? Why? I don't understand. I don't want that. I want countries to be more peaceful and to mind their own business. And if there are countries that have a different political culture than yours, maybe you don't agree with those, and I don't agree with those for sure. But I don't think you can fix them either. Like you see what happened in Afghanistan, for example, 2 decades fighting the Taliban, and what do you do in the end? You give the country back to the Taliban. So what is the point? But anyway, and it's not an isolated case. But anyway, what is the boot time of your Emacs config? I use Doom Emacs, which boots in a second, and I wonder if I start from scratch, how much I can improve my boot time, knowing that I have a decent machine. Mine is about that, but I can check right now. Oh, so let me 1 second make myself smaller there. And let's do MX Emacs init time. And less than a second, you see here. And of course, you have to consider that this is with me running the live stream, right? Because I think I started Emacs while this was running. So I would say this is pretty good. And I have a lot of packages as well. And not just packages, I also have a lot of custom code in my Emacs configuration. Uh, Whether you will gain by going with Scratch from scratch, it will depend on how meticulous you are with your configuration. So if you are careful, if you do things right, then yes, you will get something really decent. But for me personally, if I was using Doom Emacs, I wouldn't switch to Scratch, to building a config from scratch, just for the startup time. If I would do that, it would be to have a configuration that is exactly how I want it without all the extras of Doom. But I know many people who use Doom Emacs and they build their configuration on top. And of course, it's a very good setup. So yeah, I don't think you need to do it just for startup. Let's see, what do we have? What do you think about Next and its usage with Emacs? I haven't used it. So Next is this browser, which I believe is configured in Common Lisp. So I haven't used it. I will try it at some point, but it goes back to the point I made earlier about rabbit holes. So this is one, rabbit hole, and it looks like a deep one as well. And I'm like, yeah, let's stick to what we are doing now because otherwise it will be it will be difficult for me. As I said, the kind of person who is like me, who does a deep dive into things, has to guard against that because it is a superpower if you focus, but if you let yourself loose, to explore everything, it's basically a recipe for complete distraction and total lack of productivity. So you have to hold yourself back. Okay, so I do that. Good take on Hobbes' prod as usual. Thank you very much. What do you recommend to know the best practices if we want to create an Emacs package? There are, I would say, always consider documentation as an equal citizen to code. Never write code that does the so-called speaking for itself. I think this is not the right way to go about it. It is not how Emacs is designed. Emacs is designed to leverage all the documentation that we write. There is all this concept of the self-documenting nature of Emacs, and you can find documentation about anything in Emacs Lisp. I won't go into the details. If you want, I'm happy to elaborate. But the point is, don't skip the documentation. It's not a second-class citizen. You have to treat it equally. So that granted, then I would say write code and write it in a way that is easy for you to debug. And at least for me, an easy way to debug code is to have small functions that do one thing, that have a predictable behavior, and which you can debug without running a huge function that has a lot of let bindings and that kind of stuff. There are cases where you will have to write a longer function. But generally, I say avoid those. I would say if you can have small functions that do one thing and they are easy to test, do that. And keep, the exceptions and keep the exceptions limited. And then when you need to go for an exception, well, there you have it. Other than that, a good way to learn is to check other people's code. There are lots of good Emacs packages out there. You can do Emacs find library, and from there you can find the source code of any Emacs Lisp file on your system that you are running in your current Emacs session. So there is that. One package of mine, which I think is useful for didactic purposes, is Denote. It has a lot of things, regardless of if you use it or not. I don't mean that, but I'm talking about the code. It has a lot of patterns, which I think are not too difficult to grasp, even if you don't know eLisp too well. And I think because it has lots of small functions and it's very adaptable, and by let binding a variable, you can change its behavior. I think it has a lot of interesting patterns. So if you want to check one of my packages, it would be that. Let's see. Do you use Trump in Emacs? When yes, would you make a video about it? I couldn't modify remote files using Trump. I have used it like 2 or 3 times for demo purposes, basically, because I don't do anything with SSH. So I can't really tell how it works and if it's good or not. But I have used it for the sudo. How does it call it? I think it calls it method. So I have used it with the sudo method. It works fine, but then again, I don't really need to edit files as the super user that frequently. And like when I need to do it, I'm happy to use Trump for that. But normally I don't. So otherwise, yeah, I cannot really comment on it. Um, it's the kind of thing that you need to go and search and check the source code as well. Like if you do Emacs find library, what I was saying earlier, maybe you will find some user option there. It is declared with def custom, and maybe by looking at the code how it is used, maybe you can understand what you need to do with it. But yeah, this is not a good answer. I know. I know. Let's see here. I have witnessed it, Prot, using tree sitter to write Lisp family code on a live stream. It is huge. Oh, that sounds promising. If you can tell me more, please do it, and I will check it out when I get the chance. Interesting context for Hobbes is The World Turned Upside Down by Christopher Hill, about the theological, political, and esoteric currents informing the English Revolution, as he calls it, and the revolution in quotes. Very interesting, and I will take a look at that as well. And I think generally, you want to understand the historical context. It's very easy for us to cavalierly dismiss some historical intellectual, some historical figure, on the grounds that they are not exactly how we expect a modern intellectual to be. And I think this is wrong. You have to you have to understand that every idea and by extension every person is a product of their era, and they are kind of wedded in that web of history and culture and the prevailing conditions, and you cannot just decouple the intellectual from their milieu in this wider sense. Animal Farm by George Orwell. Sorry, George Orwell. It's exactly that. Correct. It's exactly that, folks. Yes. Greetings, Prot. Greetings to you too. I've recently binged watched your entire Emacs playlist, and it was wonderful to see your progression. Oh, very interesting. Yeah, so thank you. I don't know how many videos I have, but they go back to 2019. So yeah, I started without knowing any Emacs Lisp, and eventually, yeah, to the point of rabbit holes, I went down the rabbit hole, and now, yeah, I can't stop. I keep writing Emacs Lisp. Hey, Prot, have you thought about adding F themes to core? I guess you mean to core Emacs. It's not up to me. So if the maintainers contact me and they are like, hey, Prot, do you want to include the F themes in Emacs? Of course. I have assigned copyright to the Free Software Foundation. I am an Emacs contributor. Like the other day, I pushed the latest version of the Modus themes in core Emacs. So if they tell me, the next day I will push the F themes to Emacs Git. If they don't tell me, well, I won't do it. But it's not up to me, and even if it were up to me, I wouldn't do it unilaterally. I would want others to tell me because I don't want to abuse the fact that I have commit, write access to the Emacs Git repository. So there is that. So basically, what I do with the Emacs Git repository, if it's the Modus themes, I just send the commit directly. I don't discuss it. But if it's anything else, I will send a patch. So I never, push changes like that. Speaking of the F themes, are you planning any additions to it? Says Alexander. Right now, no, but you never know. I want it to be organic. I don't force it. Basically, if I have the idea of, like a style, a certain aesthetic, I will do it. But for now, I think we are at a point where, the themes cover a lot of ground. They have a lot of different styles, and maybe they cater to different types of people. And I think they are in a very good spot. But of course, there is always room for more. So we will see. Talking about XFCE and considering the work you put into BSPWM, i3, etc., do you have any plans of an eventual transition to Wayland? In principle, yes. But Wayland, for me, it's not ready. I keep having issues. Like, I don't remember what it was. Like Emacs, if you have Emacs with PGTK. I even forget what it was, but I have had problems with Emacs. I have had problems with what is it? Skype and Jitsi and all those video conferencing apps. I have had problems with Flatpaks. I have had problems with a lot of things, and you go on the online, and there are people who will be pedantic about it, and they will say, well, it's not Wayland's fault, it's the fault of, I don't know, Electron or whatever. Fine, technically it's not Wayland's fault, but as a user, this Wayland ecosystem is not working. So I don't care whose fault it is. I want something that works as a user. So until we have that, Wayland is not for me. Wayland in the bigger sense, not the protocol, okay? Like the whole ecosystem. Hi, Prot. Greetings from Taiwan. So, greetings to you too. Just want to say huge thank you for your contribution and inspiration. You are welcome. Regarding dogs and pets, Deleuze is good on animals in the documentary Gilles Deleuze A to Z. First one is on animals. It's on YouTube. Very interesting. So I'm curious to learn more. Um, but yeah, for me, animals are amazing. Like all animals, of course. And where I am here, I live in the mountains. In case you don't know, and like I am at the base of a valley, so there is a river over there, and there is the mountain behind me, and so behind me and in front of me, and every day I see eagles, for example, and you see the eagle, and it's basically a huge, huge bird, and then you see crows, which are about 1/3 the size of the eagle. And you are like, wow, the eagle, the apex predator of the skies, right? The prey bird par excellence. And you're like, well, it must be, the king of the skies or whatever. But in fact, the crows will gang up and will repel the eagle from where the crows are. But something that I have observed the last few days, the crows do not want to harm the eagle. So what happens is that you will see the crows going after the eagle, and the eagle has to retreat. And as soon as the eagle lands somewhere, the crows may land, nearby, but they don't go to attack the eagle. And I'm like, wow, look at that. That's amazing. Because basically the crows are not vindictive. They are not like, oh, you entered our territory and now we will have to kill you. They're like, dude, get out and then we are good. And I'm like, wow, if only humans would do that, that would be very nice. But we are like, no, you were a trespasser. I would have to kill you and all of your family. Basically, that's what humans do. And yeah, it's sad. Alex says, hey, Prot, I'm wondering about the hut life, specifically how you maintain good nutrition, store food, and how you deal with fecal waste. And about the latter, I have a toilet, a standard setup in the area, so that works totally okay. About the nutrition, I have a balanced diet. I buy groceries from the local store. That works fine. Eventually, I might have more, in terms of kitchen appliances, in terms of storage room or whatever, but not yet. It's a work in progress. So that will happen eventually. So I would say that even though the place is not yet perfect or not yet what you would expect an ordinary house to be, for me at least, it is livable. And maybe my tolerance is different from the average person, and that's why. But the point is that I am totally okay the way things are right now, and I want it to be better, and it will get better if I can, when I can. Yogi says, oh, let's see, we lost it. Sorry, where are we? Where are we? Something about a golden retriever. Oh my goodness. Uh, Folks, by the way, there are too many questions here, and I don't think I will be able to answer everything because here it's dark. And okay, it's 20 past 3. It's getting dark here because of the clouds, and I think I should quit earlier than expected, but not yet. Let's continue and see how it goes. Yogi says, I have a golden retriever and he loves to be part of the family, e.g., sitting together with us on the sofa, of course. So I think it depends on the dog breed. Of course, yes, it definitely depends on the dog breed. My dog, Atlas, is a cross breed between an American Pit Bull Terrier, and you know the reputation those have, and that's unfortunate for the animals. So an American Pit Bull Terrier and a German Shepherd, most probably. We are not 100% sure of that. The girl that gave me Atlas all those years ago told me back then that it looked like a German Shepherd and it was black. So we don't know for sure. But the point is that Atlas is a dog that has the qualities of a guard dog. So he is really defensive of his protective, not defensive, of his territory. He's extra protective of me as well. Like we go on a walk, and I will, stop walking for a second to take a picture, and Atlas will notice that I stopped, and he turns around and he's like, "Hey, what happened?" So he always has an eye of where I am and what I am doing, and I think that's wonderful. But my point is, Atlas and Raizu, my other dog, both are highly active dogs. We go for long walks. They run up and down the mountains. They are really intense, uh, as am I. Okay, but the point is that they are also sweethearts. Like Atlas, he wants to sit with me. He wants to be close to pet him or whatever. Raizu is the same. Uh, I kiss my dog as well, but I don't do that on camera because I kiss him on the forehead because he has a big head and I like it, and it's fun. So there is that, and I think it's a wonderful relationship. Of course, different types of dog will have different features for sure, but I think all dogs are good friends of people. I've never found a dog who is not positively disposed towards people, except from mistreated animals. There are people who should not have a dog because a dog is a huge, huge responsibility. Like, if you have a dog, you are either of two things. You are a responsible person, which is great, or you are not a responsible person and you don't know what you got yourself into. And if you are the latter category, you have to assume responsibility because the dog really needs to be socialized, really needs to have an outlet for all that energy it has. Otherwise, it becomes destructive. And if you are abusing the animal, that animal will be aggressive and will be extremely dangerous. And you see this with small dogs, like the Chihuahua, and they are really aggressive. But because they are small, nobody cares, right? But those are actually ferocious. If they bite you, they will still injure you. But the point is, when you have a larger dog, like Atlas, for example, or the pit bulls or the Rottweilers or whatever, if that kind of dog is mistreated and is abused, you basically have created a killing machine. And that's really, really, really dangerous. And it's the human, first and foremost, who has to deal with the consequences of that. And I think the law should, in my opinion, at least for certain types of dog, should have a higher requirements. Basically, if you don't know, if you are a first-time dog owner, you shouldn't have a dog, basically, that is that kind of dog. You should start with something that is less lethal. But otherwise, you should do basically the equivalent of what we do with driving, right? You should have a special license. So me, I am basically an expert in dogs, and I would like to have a license, and therefore I would like to be able to have any kind of dog, Dogo Argentino, Cane Corso, the Georgian Shepherd dog, whatever, any kind of dog, because I can handle it. But I wouldn't trust any random person with that kind of dog, especially not the kind of people who think that they will be a badass, I am a real man, when I have a pit bull with me or a dog Argentino or whatever. No, you are not. You are a complete moron and you are mistreating the animal, and your idiocy is a danger to society. So yeah, but golden retrievers are fantastic. So I don't think you can go wrong with them. But don't mistreat them either, of course. There is a tendency in many Western modern cultures to see animals as children or objects while they are adults with their own character. For sure, for sure. And dogs in particular, they can actually do a lot of works. Like you have dogs in the military, you have dogs in police departments, you have dogs in customs. You know, they are sniffing the packages and stuff. You have dogs that are service animals, you know, for the blind or for people with epilepsy. You have dogs that are in care centers. Like they can do so many things. And of course, there is an aspect of them which is like a child and it's so cute, right? And endearing, but they are not actually children. No, they definitely have the mind of an adult and they are both smart and empathetic, so they can understand. Even dogs like Atlas, who is an fairly aggressive dog. Even dogs like Atlas, they have a very good sense of when to do what, and also a very good sense of sensing emotions. What do you think on the future of free software? Large language models are too big to be created by the Free Software Foundation or enthusiasts. Training data is unfree. Developers use Copilot and VSC. I'm not sure what's that, but probably something with AI. Environments where AI writes large parts of the code. How to compete? Uh, I don't think we can compete the way you frame it because we are understaffed and underfunded. But it's not just, or let me put it differently. We is not just the free software geeks, right? I don't think we have to have this kind of limited understanding of ourselves. I think we have to have a bigger picture understanding of our place in society. So, of course, I am a free software enthusiast, but I am not just that. I am also a member of a society, and maybe I can enlighten my fellow citizens on these issues, which have far reaching implications on matters of labor rights, on matters of the distribution of resources in the society, and on matters of politics by extension, and basically educate or inform or help citizens around me, and all of us together, maybe we can have a critical mass to make some thoroughgoing reform. So maybe I as an individual, or we as, you know, nerds, basically, you know, free software geeks or whatever, maybe we don't have enough power, but we are not isolated. There are many other people who would be interested in this kind of cause. Hello, Prot. At the beginning of your hard project, how confident were you in your success? This is Sam asking. Sorry, I forgot to mention some names. Raymond was the person who was asking before. Now it's Sam. How confident were you in your success? Did you have any doubts along the way? How satisfied are you with the results? The answer is that I wasn't sure. I was confident in only one thing, my work ethic. And I was confident that this is unyielding. Basically, I would try to the best of my powers and whatever happens. And other than that, I wasn't confident or sure about anything else. It was a leap of faith. And what I was thinking at the time was, well, I will jump and hopefully there is a safety net and I won't come down crashing. Along the way, this is something I have said in videos that I have done about 1 year since I started the idea of the hut and 1 year of living at the hut. I have done two videos. And I have said in those that it's not me, you know, the modern Robinson Crusoe doing everything on my own because I am smart and I am a gritty and I am whatever. No, This is uh, just nonsense and it's not the truth. What I did is, of course, the product of my work, but I was helped by a lot of people online who made donations or who helped me with work, and a lot of people locally who helped me carry stuff, who gave me access to discounts and to second-hand materials which were of good quality. So without this community, basically, I am nothing. Maybe I have hard work, but hard work on its own is nothing. You need people around you to help you however they can. You simply don't have the resources on your own to do everything. So yes, I was able to do this. About the results, I am happy with the results, but I know that this is not the finished project. Like one thing you see here, for example, this is the wall. Of course, you see it's not exactly what you would consider a perfect house, right? But it works, and the thing is that I will improve it over time. I don't have this kind of perfectionistic attitude where unless it is perfect, I cannot tolerate it here. I am totally happy to live in something that is imperfect and which I will be iterating on over time. So this is what I have been doing, and this is what I will continue to do. Uh, Now I am safe in the sense that I have a place to stay, so I have shelter. Uh, there still are many things I want to do, many things. One of which is, improve the power setup. I was telling you that I need to uh, be mindful of the fact that there are, clouds and basically we don't have any sunlight now because my battery capacity is low. So that is something I will need to change. I will need to improve the insulation of the place. I will need to have hot water. I will need to have the kitchen appliances. Lots of things. Of course, it's a place that not everybody could live here, but I can, and that's fine. And I don't mean to say I can live because I am tough. I can live because I understand what the alternative would be. And that's really different. Okay. So when you understand the alternative, when you have a sense of perspective, you can tolerate a lot. So I don't mean to sound like, oh, it's because I am tough and I am the real man and all that kind of nonsense. It's not that. It's that I know what the alternative is, and the alternative is really bad. Let's see. The BSPWM was very well documented. This was about the point of prot dots for Debian. So yes, thank you for that. Roman says, hi Prot, what is the best way to learn eLisp to be able to write your own packages if you don't have any experience with Lisp-like languages? Um, Start small. Try to see how other people use it. Like, or if that doesn't work, let me take a step back. I have done a video where I have talked about how to learn Emacs Lisp by using the self-documenting features of Emacs. But the idea is to search online how to define a variable and search online how to define a function. And then try to write a function which, the very simple case, how I started, goes forward, goes down 10 lines. And then do the same in the opposite direction and make that interactive. So, to put it differently, try to think in language, in human terms, in natural language. Try to think of what you want to do as a starting point, not what package you want to have. Like, how can I make something simple? Think of something simple and then try to do it. And you will see that you will find it. So search for something simple and then also consult the Emacs documentation. The self-documenting nature of Emacs will help you. And I'm also happy to provide you with specific examples. And then there are also many other resources, right? Like there is the Mastering Emacs book, there is David Wilson slash System Crafters. There are my videos. There are many other people who do videos. So between all those and also blog posts, many people write blog posts and they have code there. So I think all these considered, eventually you will pick it up, just how I did, because I didn't have any background in Lisp either. I knew how to write some shell scripts. So let's see. Fikri says, hi, Prot. So hello to you too. Matthew, where does Emacs meet your expectations? Where are the weak points? Where does Emacs surprise you with unexpected workflows? Uh, the expectation. For me, the expectation is a platform that allows me to draw linkages between different applications, let's say. So I mentioned earlier the fact that I have my email in Emacs, and I also have my agenda and my to-dos in Emacs. And because of Emacs, drawing linkages between those two is trivial because everything is implemented in Emacs Lisp, everything is configured in Emacs Lisp, everything is extended in Emacs Lisp. Whereas if you want to try the equivalent with Mat, Vim, Tmax, and friends, good luck. You have to know 3 languages and 3 different ways of doing things. Basically, it's impossible to scale. And then if you have another app, a 4th language, and so on, forget about it. This is what I was doing before Emacs. And I was like, the Unix philosophy has one fundamental weakness or one glaring gap, a layer of interactivity that connects all those standalone apps, the standalone programs, into a holistic kind of experience. And it's basically Emacs is this layer of interactivity on top of Unix. So for me, Emacs, or anything that would do that like Emacs, if you want to generalize it, is basically the best thing you can get. The weak points of Emacs, you can read about them. People who are more competent than me have written about them. Multi-threading, and maybe the window manager of Emacs needs to be rewritten, and all the C parts need more experts. And basically, we are understaffed, and we are volunteers, all the contributors in the Emacs space. So of course, if we have more competent people contributing, well, that's better. So yes, I would say that Emacs is in a really good spot, though. Unexpected workflows. Well, I keep learning new things, but at this stage, I cannot think of something unexpected. Like, once you wrap your head around the notion of everything is extensible because everything is eLisp, and you have this continuum of eLisp, basically, you are like, well, if I can think about it, well, it can be done. This is the idea, right? Uh, Provided we are talking about text. I'm sure that if you have video or whatever, it's different. But if it's text centric, if you can think about it, well, go ahead. This is the idea. And in that regard, it's not unexpected. Let's see. Dulce bellum in expertis. Very nice. Do you have thoughts on Geeks Nicks? They seem the best route to take a modern Lisp machine. Uh, they look really promising, for sure. I talked about them earlier as well. If you check the recording of the video, you can find it. But in short, they are really good. Technically, they look excellent. They address technical problems, difficult problems, and they seem to be doing it splendidly. Uh, Whether we need those to have a modern Lisp machine, I don't really know. Like, for me, Emacs is good enough, but if we could have something more, well, that's wonderful. Like, if Geeks can be a Lisp machine, from A to Z, and if that gives us as users a tangible advantage, that's great. But as I said earlier, the parts of Geeks slash Nix, which is like, roll back to a previous commit or generation, whatever they call it, or, reproduce your setup or whatever. They are very nice, but for me, they are also useless because for my specific workflow, I don't do that. Like I was using Arch for all those years, and if you read online, they are like, well, Arch broke. How did it break? I never broke Arch. How do you do that? Of course, if you are careless, you break it. But if you are careless, why are you on Arch? So there is that. Let's see. To heal my RSI, I also started with Split Ergo keyboard, but Atrius is enough to keep my RSI away. Still ergonomic, but compact and better portable. I think what you are talking about is the one which is unibody, but basically like wings. So it's like this. It's not like this, right? It's like, yeah, this kind of thing. So yeah, that's good. Maybe also the Alice layout, the Alice keyboard layout is another option. I haven't tried it, but it looks good. So yeah, I will say that. But if you do that in combination with QMK features, then probably that will be good enough, yes. Where's your gaming chair? It's right there. And the reason I am not using it is because right now I am injured. I have an injury in my back. And this chair is basically better for this. But it's over there. It's a gaming chair, but I don't game myself. I have nothing against gaming, but I'm not a gamer. It's an office chair for me. So yeah, there is that. Once I heal from the pain in my back, I will switch to it again. It's only a matter of days. Let's see, Alexander, you can do one-shot modifiers, tap and hold, double tap, etc. with key D. Check it out. It's written in C and has simple configuration. So yeah, if it is as good as having it at the firmware level, yeah, then of course. So there are other projects as well. I think what's it called? The one written in Haskell, K Monad is another option, but I haven't used them. So whatever you can use to basically get those features, then that's good. Minas Mazar says, I think God mode should be included in the Emacs built-in package list. It's the best compromise between vanilla key bindings and the Vim layer. I tried to use a God mode at the beginning when I had RSI. I couldn't get used to it. It wasn't like the fact that you have to escape a key. I forget right now exactly how it was, but I think you have to hit space or something to escape a key. And for me, that wasn't doing it. Like it was getting too slow. There is another package called Devil, which is similar to God mode without being modal. So Devil also has this idea of you hit a key and it's translated into a modifier. But yeah, same problem. You have to escape at some point, and for me, that's not good. Raymond asks, as a free software enthusiast, why still use Microsoft GitHub? I read about your source code experience. That UX is indeed too different, but Codeberg is really good. Why not set an example and move? Well, that's good. I haven't checked Codeberg, so I don't know what to expect. But of course, Microsoft GitHub, right? And here, Google YouTube. And we could even say, banks about money. They are also not exactly saints. Um, I think we also have to be pragmatic. Like GitHub is, of course, controlled by a corporation that I don't like at all, but at the same time is a place where we get a lot of contributions into free software projects. So there is a balancing act. Like, do I want to move somewhere where nobody will find my code, but I will technically be free? Or do I want to be somewhere where people will use my code, will contribute to my code, the package will be better, and okay, what can we do? We have to deal with Microsoft. We have to deal with Microsoft anyway. So I personally don't think that trying to hide from all those corporations is working. I think that is a losing strategy because if you are consistent with that, you will have to be a cave person. Like if you are consistent not just with software but generally, if you're like, oh, I disagree with banks, therefore I won't use money. Oh, I disagree with big pharma, therefore I won't take drugs, pharmaceutics. Oh, I disagree with the meat industry or the vegetables industry or whatever, therefore I won't eat or whatever. Like, where do you draw the line? Eventually you have to be realistic, and I don't think the solution is by withdrawing. I think the solution is political. And the solution is to have policies that curtail the monopolistic or oligopolistic power of these mega corporations. And I don't think we can basically hide. We have to meet them head on, and we have to control them, like what the European Union did with Apple, for example, the case of Apple and its tax avoidance in Ireland. So I think that's the right move, but I would like to see much more of that. Let's see. Adam says, would you consider doing a video on ontology and epistemology? In principle, yes. Though generally, I don't do this kind of abstract kind of videos. It's usually about a specific topic. So ontology or epistemology or whatever will be in the background, but then I will be talking about the more practical issue. Um, I think those topics that are abstract are best discussed are best addressed in written format, because you can pay attention to what the person is saying. And as an author, you can be more specific and more careful. In language as we speak, we have to be more lax with our standard, because when you are talking, you may say something which is not 100% correct or not 100% what you were thinking, and it's a discussion, and the other person has to understand this. And as I have said in other videos, for me, the best kind of philosophy is face to face, because when you have a misunderstanding, you can address it right there. But when you have, like, text, you will have that misunderstanding for the rest of eternity. Earlier, I commented on interpretations about the Bible, and it's the same thing. Like, whose interpretation is the correct one? Even if it is, a holy book, yeah, whose version of it is the right one? Yeah, good luck finding that out. You won't. Um, Christoph asks, how do you organize your folder? Para method. How do you organize your notes? Para method also. I have no idea what's the para method, so probably I don't use it. I use the file naming scheme of the note to name all the files I care about. So this is including my notes, what I write, but also files such as video and PDF and images, etc. And I have this predictable file naming scheme because it's very easy for me to use generic tools like GNU Find or GNU grep to basically find everything I need. And for me, this is enough. I don't mean to say that this is the best method. I don't think such a thing exists. You have to always find the method that works for you, and this is the method that works for me. Uh, True. You can try and make the Lisp machine faster, multi-threading with current Emacs Lisp architecture. It's kind of tricky to do. Yeah, this is what I have heard. So what does a typical day of you look like? A typical day looks like this. I wake up in the morning early. I go for a long walk. Or if it's a special day where I have to do some work, I will, just do some work around here, and then I will work on the computer. But I will be physically active very early. The first thing I do in the morning is put cold water on my face and drink a full glass of water. And for me, this gives me the vitality, the impetus I need to start the day. And I like to be active. So I like to have some intensity. And when I come to eventually work on the computer, I feel good, and then I can do the work I need. So depending on the day, sometimes it's more computer focused. Other days it's more manual labor outside here at the hut. It might be construction work. It might be some infrastructure that I am doing. It might be some farming, depending on what I am doing. So that's how it is. I have to sleep, but salutations, Prot. So good night to you then, or have a nice sleep anyway. Hi, Prot. Just hopped in, so this might have been asked. If that is the case, let me ask again. How would you suggest a new Emacs user as myself to learn eLisp? I do use Emacs for daily dev and done the intro. So as I said, basically look at other people's code, try to formulate very small examples, try to formulate questions like, how can I write the most simple interactive function, that kind of thing. How do I define a variable? How can I test that the value of a variable is what I want it to be? How can I print a message? These sorts of things. And I think when you articulate those in ordinary language, then the code will follow. I think it's a matter of then going around and searching. And of course, lots of experimentation, tinker, and you will get there. Let's see, Christoph, how do you attach a document to a heading in an org mode document? I know this is a feature, and I have never used it. So I don't have a workflow for it. I read about it, and I was like, when do you need this? And I haven't thought of a use case for me. So I haven't done it, and I cannot say more. Pavlos says Yosefka Gang, so of course it's about the fonts, so that's very nice. The themes are incredible. My eyes, thank you for them. You are welcome. I wish making GTK theme is easy, so we can easily port Modus themes everywhere. Uh, that would probably be nice, but as you already know, it's not easy at all. And GNOME is making sure to uh, not have people write themes, with the the library that they have. I forget how it's called. Basically, they want to have the GNOME platform, and they know better because they were blessed by the gods, and we don't know anything about how we want our systems to look. So we have to defer to their godly ability to, design stuff. So you can tell that I am not a fan of GNOME. So there is that. Atkinson hyper legible is a very nice compliment to your version of Iosefka. I use both together. Very nice. I will have to take a look at that, but the hyper legible sounds promising. So we will see. Peter says, what theme do you recommend for an ANSI 16 color terminal? I like to have something to switch to if I need a TTY terminal with Control Alt F3 on my system. I haven't tried it, so I cannot say for sure, but maybe the Modus themes would work. I don't know. If they don't work, the default Emacs themes should be okay. I don't know if they are good, but they should be serviceable. But yeah, it's something I haven't tried. So yeah, I don't know. Let's see. For someone who is a bit shy or overwhelmed by all that you do, but who would nevertheless want to interact with you via your coaching lessons, how would you encourage that person? Um, the answer is very simple. You send me an email, I will reply, we will schedule a meeting, and we take it from there. Um, you don't need to overthink it because it's just a face-to-face interaction. Um, it may not be obvious in what I do, but I am actually a very easygoing person. And those who know me know that I am actually a really funny person as well. Um, but my humor is, one-liners and when you don't expect it. So be prepared. But of course, it's never edgy, right? But my point is that it's relaxed. Just take it easy, and we can meet. If you think it would help, we could do a trial, a test, and we could talk, I don't know, for 30 minutes, and yeah, if it works, then we do the coaching, and you will be the judge of that. And of course, the trial free of charge, right? So let's see. Matthew, let's see. Have you looked at Emacs model Vim alternatives like Meow or Boon? I looked into Meow. It seems good. The idea of basically reusing your keys is very good. It's more lightweight than Evil, so I like that. But I used Meow at a time where I was already migrating to the custom keyboard, and I was like, well, now I have the custom keyboard. Basically, I don't have an issue with the RSI, or it's basically a smaller problem. So I was like, well, too bad. I won't continue with Meow. Boon, I haven't used it, so I don't know. But just to conclude on Meow, it looks really promising, and yeah, people should give it a try for sure. So something, I think I saw something with my camera. Let me see. Is YouTube still going? Where is it? Where are we? Warning. Okay, so it's still going. That's fantastic. I think I saw something. Yeah, but anyway. Let's see. Where are we? Here, Christophe. What do you think of Nano Emacs by Nicolas Rougier? Nicolas Rougier. I haven't used it because I have my own configuration. In terms of aesthetics, it looks wonderful. I really like what Nicolas is doing in general. But because I already have a setup, I haven't tried Nano Emacs. Also, because of the fact that I maintain a lot of packages, I cannot deviate too much from what Emacs is doing because I need to have a sense of how the average user would be using Emacs. So if I, for example, use a completely different interface to the email, then I won't be able to design my themes for it, for example, right? Because I will be seeing something that other people won't be seeing. So I have to be mindful of that. Mihai says, I personally prefer recursive sans and mono due to poor eyesight. So, of course, yes, every person has to use what works for them. There is no one size fits all. Geeks and nicks both do not compile with optimization flags. Favor of portability, meaning they usually have shit performance for normal users. Okay, so that's something to consider. We would want to have the best performance possible. Let's see. Nix has the same problems as Geeks regarding download sizes, and the Nix language is just atrocious. Well, coming from Lisp, all I can say is that I would pick Geeks on the fact that it's a Lisp. So on that alone, but it's not a statement on of which one is better because I haven't used them, so I cannot tell. But just coming from Lisp, I would prefer more Lisp basically. I like my parentheses. Let's see. I'm sad that there is no way to make spacious padding work with transparency. I've tried to disable the fringe and experimented with custom faces, but still can't really make the mode line elegant like you. So those are two different issues that you mentioned. First, the transparency. What we need is somebody who knows C to work in Emacs upstream so that we can add support for any custom face to opt into transparency, or I don't know, let's think about it, some way for a theme to say, yes, you can have transparency, or for some way for faces to be transparent. Because right now, transparency is implemented only for the background, and to me, this looks like an unfulfilled potential. So there is that. About the mode line being elegant, I have done a video on how to write a custom mode line. So check that out, find it. Yeah, it's somewhere, search. And then you can also check my protmodeline.el, which is part of my Emacs configuration. It's part of my dot files. It's available on my website as well, the HTML version. So you can find resources. Basically, you can copy my entire prot mode line and modify it, or you can write your own from scratch. Let's see here. Joe Bigora says here, what are your thoughts on GNU Geeks? I have talked about it. Basically, really good project, very promising. It solves problems that are technical and difficult, but which I do not have. So for me, I would only be using it for fun, but not for any, real production case. Thanks for answering my question, and also thanks for the great Denote Emacs package. You're welcome. Julius says, let's see. Sorry, where are we? Where are we? Here. I have started writing my own init.tl with the help of your videos. Appreciate the knowledge you share. You are welcome. Yogi says, do you have any familiarity with proportional and first order logic because of your background in philosophy? And if so, what do you think of it? So, generally, no. Generally, I haven't studied logic. And not because I have anything against it, but because there is simply too much. And you can only learn so much. Maybe at some point I will get into it, but I haven't checked formal logic as of now. So of course I cannot comment on it. Let's see. Do you dislike the layer in between the OS and Emacs? Do you think modern Lisp machine would be the solution? I don't know what modern Lisp machine would entail. Where we are now, I will say it's good enough. If we can make it better, well, of course, I'm all for it. But I don't know what a Lisp machine requires. What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? So unless we have something concrete that we could talk about, I cannot really tell. The idea is good, but we will have to see. You know, if it's a good in practice, then of course I'm all for it. One of my courses in logic, one of my courses is in logic this semester, and a lot of resources links back to philosophy. Yeah, of course, there is a connection there because many philosophers have worked on logic. However, I think logic is more related to mathematics eventually, even though philosophers have worked on it, because of course philosophers can do other things. We are not just philosophers. So it's that there is the intersection of language and mathematical thought, basically. Agree with your political stance. Imperialism is a poison to humanity. My question would be, how do you position yourself along or against the concepts dialectical and historical materialism? I am not a fan of them. I am not a fan of Hegel's concept in general, like the metaphysics of dialectical whatever, because that is not what dialectical meant in ancient Greece. But anyway, I don't think it's constructive. I don't think this kind of thesis and antithesis, which leads to a synthesis at the global scale, makes sense for the simple fact that one thesis does not have a single antithesis. There are many possible antitheses, and not all of them lead to syntheses, and not all syntheses are equally tenable or good. But more practically, I don't think it's a useful way to understand what is happening in the case of Marx. I don't think the Marxian framework is very insightful. For me, at least, I don't think it gives me insights. And to my point, we have in the left, because I am a leftist, we have in the left lots of people who are intellectuals, like how well they have studied Marx and all those Marxists after Marx, and basically it becomes like a self-referential kind of exercise in intellectuality, which is decoupled from the labor movement and practical issues. And if you read some Marxist texts, basically you have to read them 3 times just to be sure that you got the words correctly. So who among the people, the working class, is going to actually read that and make any sense of it? And it's no coincidence that historically the far right has appealed to the working class. Because the far right, you may say I disagree, and I disagree with the far right, but you have to understand what works. The far right uses practical language, which is of a certain type that I disagree with, but uses practical language and talks about everyday issues. And then you have Marxists in their ivory tower, some office at some university, talking about dialectical historical materialism, blah blah blah. Nobody cares. It, it's for the internal consumption among intellectuals. Nobody cares in real life, and that's why we had historically the far right taking the appealing to the working class, and the response from the intellectual left was that this is what's the name? I forget right now. The vulgar socialism or something. I forget the word right now. But basically, it's false socialism. It doesn't matter if you give it a name. What matters is what happens, and what happens is not good. And what I want is practical talk. And what I want is intellectuals who use their knowledge, who use their intelligence, who use their position to connect technical issues with everyday affairs, and who are there to be helpful to everyday people and not to pontificate about something abstract that nobody understands. And if we talk about more modern, intellectual currents, where you have, like the postmodernism, I think that is completely decoupled from anything remotely practical. Sasha, hello there to you. Sasha Chua, of course, a superstar in Emacs and a major powerhouse, a force for good in free software at large. What are you curious about these days? What are you figuring out? So that's a really good question. What I have been thinking about lately are concepts of community and spirituality. And I did a video recently where I talked about this community and spirituality, but it's something that is of real interest to me because I am thinking about this theme of basically we cannot really appreciate the world without others. Like the mind needs minds to experience the world. And you can think of this even in simple terms in the case of Emacs, right? Like, would I be able to experience Emacs if there was nobody out there to write Emacs or to write Emacs Lisp? Or if there was, let's say, a rudimentary Emacs, would I be able to benefit from that if there was no one out there to give me some package that I can build on top of? And so I am interested in basically how we have to have a sense of the space that we occupy, the space socially. And the space socially in terms of a locality, in terms of a locus, so a physical space, but also generally, like in the case of the Emacs community kind of thing. So I think that community is really important, and spirituality is basically, I talk about it more in that video, but it's basically the idea of how do we connect to that which is out there, that which is greater, which we cannot describe because by describing it, we rationalize it and thus we reduce it to the rational level, but which we can sense. And you know it when you feel it, kind of thing. And I think there is an intimate connection between community and spirituality because if you can escape from the confines of your ego to be a part of a community, then the same can be true in spiritual matters because you can escape from the confines of your ego to be part of the greater world, of the cosmos at large. And this is what I am thinking about these days and what I want to learn more about. And when I observe the trees or the birds and the animals and all that, and the patterns in the world more generally, I keep encountering interesting things. I keep finding immanent reason, immanent intelligence in everything, immanent mind in everything. So I wouldn't limit what I said the mind needs other minds to just people. I would generalize it, but of course, people are important, okay? And they are important also in practical terms, like what I was saying earlier, people who helped me bring stuff here to build the hut and that kind of stuff of thing. People whom we talk with or whatever. Uh, Kind of a personal question, but how is your dating life? It's non-existent. Where I am, there are not that many people who live in the area, and those who do are elderly, generally speaking. Plus, I don't really leave the area, so I don't go to the city. I don't really go shopping. Yeah, it's not a good situation in that regard. I am not against it, of course. I am open to it, but I am also not really, too. How do we say it? I don't really mind. I am indifferent. So if I get to date, that's great. If I don't, well, that's great. No problem, because I don't make it the sine qua non, the condition without which of my happiness. So I don't make it like, oh, if I cannot date, I will be miserable, I will be a failure, I will be whatever. I don't see it that way, because I can have fulfilling, enriching, enthralling, engrossing experiences without a date. Of course, I can also have those with a date. And if that happens, well, that's great. But I think we have on this note, uh, there was somebody who told me once, one of my greatest failures, this was a person in their 30s, a man, and he said, one of my greatest failures is that I have not been able to marry. And for me, this is like, no, my friend, I think you are wrong, because you are assuming all the responsibility on yourself for something that is not entirely upon you. Like, you have to consider that there is another person as well with whom you will get married or date, if you want to generalize it. So there has to be another person as well. And there is also the case of luck. Like, you have to consider that maybe there is that as well. The prevailing conditions are simply not there. Why would you assume everything to be a function of your volition when it's not? And then, why would you make it a precondition for your happiness? Like, why would you do that? There are a lot of people who are married and miserable. There are a lot of people who are dating all the time and who are miserable. So we shouldn't have this kind of value judgment for ourselves and this kind of, oh, if I don't have this, I don't have anything. I think this kind of nihilism, this all or nothing approach, is to our detriment. So yeah, there is that. But if you are asking for a friend, then tell your friend that yeah, it's okay. Let's see. Πρωτεσίλα, so it's in Greek. I will just read it. Πρωτεσίλα, ευχαριστώ για όλη τη δουλειά που έχεις κάνει. Είσαι πραγματικά αξιέπαινος. Συνέχισε έτσι. So what this person says, a fellow Greek, so ευχαριστώ. This person is thanking me and for all the work that I do, and basically I deserve to be congratulated and to continue more of the same. So there is that. Thanks for the awesome chat, Prot. You are welcome. I have to go. I'm going to watch. Up. Sorry, folks. What happened? Let's see. Where are we? Where are we? Oh my goodness. How far is this going? My friends, I'm afraid I won't be able to answer all this for the simple fact that I won't have electricity. So I will have to close soon. But let me see. Where are we? Let me see. Uh, you know what? I can try to record the video and answer all of the others because I want to answer everything. It's not that I want to leave, but yeah, it's difficult. Or I should do one in the morning, but then Americans won't be able to follow. So we will see. We will see. So I will. Okay, it's 13 past. We close at half past. Okay. So 1 second. Let me set a timer here in Emacs. So we want this to be at 16:30. Okay. So I have the timer there, and let's see what we do. I'll have to go. So yes, take care and thank you. Question from Lasek Kleiman. You explained a lot about a la prima method. What is your experience with the opposite? When you wake up at night wondering if you should change a comma into a semicolon. I don't do it. And the reason I don't do it is because I want to leave it there for me to know that I am imperfect. And it's basically a way for me to tolerate discomfort. Of course, discomfort may sound dramatic, but what I mean to say is that I want to tolerate the fact that I am imperfect so that I can continue doing a la prima. This is the idea. Because if I do a la prima, let's say, in the morning, and then at night I have second thoughts about it, then what happens is that I actively working against that. Basically, it's my perfectionist side speaking, and I'm like, no, my friend, you won't say anything. Go have a drink and let me do a la prima. So there is that. But yes, of course, there are cases where I will make some typo, which changes the meaning. And even though I wouldn't change it, I make an exception for that. But that is a justified exception. And it's not because I am a perfectionist, it's because I want to set it right so that there is no misunderstanding. But other than that, it is fine. Let's say, hi, Prot, hello to you as well. Agree, a commune is vital, no man is an island, for sure. And this is, of course, because we talked about the Marxist earlier, this is, of course, like the whole idea of communism in the original sense, right? The idea of a community, right? And it's not about the Soviet Empire, that's completely different. So let's continue. Let's see. Matthew, what do you think about the future of free software where Linux using GNU version 2, I guess you mean GPL, the GNU General Public License version 2, ripping people and people's codes, breaking things? We now discriminate based on location, and who says it ends with Russia? Indeed, this is concerning. However, I don't think we need to be alarmist yet. The Linux Foundation is, of course, a legal entity registered in the United States of America, and they have to conform with American law, for better or worse. We may say, okay, I disagree, or I agree, or whatever, but regardless of what we think, they have to conform with the law. They cannot do otherwise. And again, this comes back to politics. I think that we see again and again, whether it is with AI, whether it is with big corporations, whether it is with foreign affairs, we see again and again that we cannot escape from politics. Like, you want to be apolitical, but politics will find you. They care about you. So you will never escape politics. And if we don't understand this point and we continue thinking that we will live in our own nerdy kind of utopia, our little bubble where we are not affected by anyone, I think we are making a mistake. And I think we have to consider the political magnitudes, and the people who are, let's say, in America and they care about this case of the Linux kernel um, discriminating against people from Russia. Well, of course, one way to fix this is to fix your relations with Russia. You don't fix it, locally for the kernel only. It won't work. Of course, how do we fix the relations with Russia? It's not an easy problem. I don't say it's an easy problem. And it's not just the Americans. I don't mean to say it's only them. Of course, it's a difficult situation. It's a complex issue. But we have to start from somewhere. And we have to understand that free software is not basically its own little world. It's part of society. So by extension, it gets affected by politics. Kit Carson says, hello, Prodesilaos. I really appreciate your work. Thank you very much. Wilf says, you probably won't be able to answer, but I'll give it a try. What other things do you own to make the HUT project possible? Do you still rely on a car, or is everything close enough? I don't have a car, so I go on foot. But when I need to carry something heavy, I get help from people, and I am most thankful. Eventually, I will have to get a car, of course, but we will see. We will see how it goes. Maybe I could get, an electric bicycle as well, but in practice, it won't be that helpful because you cannot carry that much with it anyway. Let's see here some Spanish. I have studied Spanish. I know Spanish, but I haven't practiced it in more than 10 years, folks. So I cannot speak it. I am not fluent. I also know French, by the way. I used to speak French almost to the same level as English, but again, I haven't practiced it, so it doesn't work. I also understand Portuguese and Italian for what it's worth. Un saludo, Prot. Gracias a ti conseguí entender Emacs y todo lo que hay detrás. So, yes, thank you very much. Muchas gracias. Let's see, but yeah, as I said, I forgot everything, so I need to get in the flow. But if I practice for a little while, the words will come back. Puedo hablar español, but then how do we say but? I forgot, you see, so I forgot everything. Pero, I think it's pero. Pero no puedo, yeah, forget about it. It won't work. Hello, Prot, just jumping in, says Costa. So hello to you too. Hi, Prot. Has David Wilson reached to you about doing a collaborative stream, as I think he wanted to a while back? When it comes to private exchanges, because I have not asked for permission, I can neither affirm, I can neither say yes or no. So if we do a collaboration at some point, well, you will see it. So we will see. But from my side, of course, I am happy to collaborate with anyone. So there is that. Let's see, what do we have here? Can you explain the sourdough making process, specifically the bulk fermentation step? So for those who don't know, I do make sourdough bread. Not right now because I don't have an oven. I will make it eventually. So basically, it's a really simple process. You mix flour with water and you add equal portions of them every day. And after 7 days, the sourdough starter is ready to be mixed into some flour, and that will create the dough. Of course, you will knead the dough, and then it will inflate, it will leaven, I think is the word we use. And basically, you have to keep feeding it, and from time to time, you have to change the vessel in which it is so that it doesn't go bad. And you feed it frequently, depending on the room temperature, or if you have it in the freezer. I keep it at room temperature, so it needs to be fed every few days. But of course, the room temperature at my place is not exactly 25 degrees Celsius because it's cooler here. So if it's, let's say, 0 degrees outside, inside it will be 10 degrees. So I don't have heating at the hut. Are you going to do a house tour? Eventually, yes, but not yet because the place is not finished. And I don't want to show you, like parts of the wall that are not there, and everything being in an incomplete state, because I don't want this to be misunderstood, like me doing, like a pity kind of video. Oh, look, Prot, where Prot lives. We are so sorry. I don't want that. I don't want to do that. So I will do it when it's ready. And when it's ready, I don't know when that will be. Hi, Prot. Do you have any favorite books? If so, can you share some? Uh, well, there are too many, but since I mentioned earlier, I will mention them again. Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan and the George Orwell Animal Farm. It's those I mentioned earlier. So start with those, but they are not my favorite. Like, they are really good. They are really good. So yeah, take it from there. Do you have a plumbing implemented at the hut? The answer is yes, and I have done it all myself. And I would say plumbing is easy. You just need to think about it. It's a common sense. So I would say it's easy. The one thing which is difficult and scary, and you shouldn't try if you don't know exactly what you are doing, is electricity. So leave that to an expert, but play with all the rest. That's fine. Let's see. Hey, Prot, would you have any suggestions on how to start with philosophy as a complete newbie? And my personal opinion is that you should start with Platon, the dialogues of Platon, the dialogues of Socrates, written by Platon. In English, they call him Plato, but I think, Greeks are online, so you can ask them how to pronounce Greek words. It's fine. Don't be shy. It's okay. It's Platon, Aristoteles, Socrates, and we can go on with that. Thucydides for Thucydides, come on. Thucydides. So my point is start with Platon, and Platon, because it's in dialogue format, I think it makes it easier to follow. Another thing that I mentioned earlier, try to be lenient with Platon and with anyone who is not of the current era, because of course we are different cultures, right? So if they speak in a certain way, try to understand what they are saying and don't focus too much on the specific words, and try not to be antagonistic towards the text. Try to see, the positives, the merits of it. And take it from there. There are many, many good resources, but I think Platon is perhaps the best. At least for me, it's excellent resource. Aristoteles, of course, fantastic. Yeah, no questions there. But I would say Platon for starters. Let's see. Do you have any literature suggestions on philosophy for getting started out? Yeah, I just mentioned this, so check that out. Ted Kaczynski's The Industrial Revolution and Its Consequences have been a disaster for the human race. How do you think about no FAP or no surf in this internet addiction era? I don't know any of these references, so I cannot comment on them. So maybe if you can elaborate before I close, I'm happy to answer. But I don't know what you mean. About internet addiction, one way to limit it is basically have your phone just for a phone and maybe for the camera. Remove all the apps for it. That's one way to lessen the addiction. Another is find activities that are not in front of the computer, like go for walking, go for hiking, go play football, go join a dance club. I don't know, go knitting, go, handicrafts or whatever. Whatever it is, do something away from the computer. And I think a combination of activities and basically reduced phone usage will help. Whether it will fix the addiction, I'm not sure, but I think it will help. They are not bad. It's not a bad idea. Jean-Francois from Quebec, Canada says hello to everybody, and hello to you, Jean-Francois. Salut from the mountains of Cyprus. How to classify denotes note according to signature? Check the function denote sort dired, and you can sort by signature. The org dynamic blocks that we define can also do the same. So check that as well. You can check the denote manual. It's extensive. I take good care of it. And if there is something, you can always ask me. I'm happy to elaborate. Are you a software developer? The answer is yes. I have lots of Emacs packages. I forget the exact number right now, but it's, I think, 20 or something. So the answer is yes, but it's only Emacs Lisp. So if you think that that doesn't make me a software developer, then consider me a tinkerer, whatever. I am fine. I don't mind. Peter says, hello, how are you? I've been really enjoying your videos. Thank you very much, and I am doing well. John Smith, what did you not like about org rain to create the note? I guess you mean org roam. First of all, I don't like the fact that it is specific to org, because most of my notes are not in org. Secondly, the note is not about writing notes. It's about a file naming scheme. And once you have the file naming scheme, then you can also write notes using that file naming scheme. So I think we have different goals between the two. This is not to say that org Rome is a bad package. It's a very good package. It has probably thousands of users. It's much more popular than Denote, of course, and it's great. Uh, what is your opinion? What is your opinion on Cornelius Castoriadis? Castoriadis is a Greek 20th century philosopher who became a philosopher in France and was influenced by the French tradition. I personally consider Castoriadis a French philosopher. I don't mean to say that he is French, but in terms of his philosophy, I think he is of that tradition or that school of thought. A very interesting thinker, a very penetrating thinker, insightful, a polymath, which I always admire. Um, I haven't studied all of his works to be able to have a good opinion. The Imaginary Institution of Society, which probably is his seminal work. It's 4:30, folks, so I will finish with this and the next question. Okay, I finish with those. So the Imaginary Institution of Society is a very good work, and I think it makes a case which the salient point of is what Protagoras also said all those years ago, which is pandon chrimaton metron anthropos. And what Protagoras was saying, this is mistranslated in English as, human is the measure of all things. And that's completely wrong. Human is the measure of all chrimata, of all things that have a use value. Think of money, think of institutions, think of law, these kinds of things. And connecting to Castoriadis, Cornelius Castoriadis, the imaginary institution of society is exactly that. Like we have like a narrative and a collective imaginary, the myths, the stories we tell about who we are. Like in Europe, we say the European values. What are the European values? It's the narrative we have. And based on this narrative, we build institutions, we write law, we do everything. And the point of Castoriadis, the Protagorean point of Castoriadis, is that we have instituted them, and as such, we can reinstitute them. We can institute them anew. They are not outside of us. They are an extension of us. And so this idea that, oh, our values are sacrosanct is only true if we treat them as such. They are not sacrosanct intrinsically. So there is that. Last thing here, folks, I really have to go because of the electricity situation, but maybe it will get better eventually, or I will do a stream earlier. Let's see here. Peter says, all the philosophy and theology is great. The Emacs stuff is brilliant too. I really appreciate your work. Thank you. So closing with this, folks, I wish I could answer everything else. Yeah, it keeps going. And yeah, I'm sorry, folks. I wish I could answer more, but yeah, thanks to everybody. I am happy to do this again, and I will try to find a time that works for everybody. And then, yeah, I'm happy to talk 5 hours. I don't mind. Like, I enjoy talking, as you can tell, even though I am an introvert. But this should come as no surprise to anybody who has understood this. Like introverts enjoy human connections. What they don't like is to just have, partying for the sake of partying and superficialities. I don't like those. Thank you very much, folks. So it was 2.5 hours, I think. So yeah, that was good. And I will see you again next time, whenever that is. So